In last week's Desert Angler YouTube video, I shared an awesome southeast New Mexico duck hunt. I'll put a link to that video at the end of this video. The spot we hunted is on a small island on the Pecos River that's surrounded by private land. And this spot is on the X. And the waterfowl really want to be in this spot. Over the years I've hunted here, and we've harvested a mixed bag of mallards, green-winged teal, wood ducks, gadwalls, golden eyes, buffleheads, northern shovelers, and even the common merganser. But the most common duck we find on this spot is widgeon. I'm talking 3,000 to 5,000 widgeon that will winter in this area. There's alfalfa fields that surround the river on this spot, and the widgeons will feed up in the alfalfa and sit on the water in the shallows during the day around this island. Other waterfowl that like this X include sandhill cranes and Canadian geese. All the time that I was sitting in this duck blind during our hunt, the cranes and the geese were flying around this spot trying to figure out a way to get in. I harvested a limit of widgeons, drakes and mallards before 7:30, so I picked up my decoys to head out. After I'd gotten all the decoys picked up, the geese decided that they wanted into this spot as well, and I was lucky enough to get a shot at and harvest one of these big beautiful geese. I would say in this part of the country, that is a pretty good day of duck hunting. So in this video, I'm going to show you how I prepared the duck and goose breasts for the smoker. You know, you hear people say all the time the duck and goose taste terrible, but I must say the marinade that I came up with and the smoked duck and goose was really delicious. Now before we get into how I prepared the duck and goose, I'd like to make a shout out to Drake Waterfowl. Drake Waterfowl is the best waterfowl gear out there, made for waterfowlers by waterfowlers. Some of their gear that I use includes the MST Camo Equator Plus Full Zip Jacket, the MST Jean Cut Underwater Pants, Long Sleeve Camo Wing Shooter Shirt, the Drake Blind Bag, and the MST Breathable Insulated Waders. This gear, in my opinion, is the best waterfowl gear out there. I'll put a link to Drake Waterfowl in the description below. Now, let's get to how I prepared these ducks and geese for the smoker. I started out by brining all of the breasts. I dissolved a cup of kosher salt in this bowl of water, and I changed the brine water every day until there was no blood in the water. This took about 3 or 4 days for all of these duck and goose breasts. Next, I sliced some onion and prepared it to be thinly sliced on the mandolin. This thin sliced onion I'm going to use as part of the marinade with these duck breasts. Next, I got out some bacon, opened it up, and sliced it in about half to use to wrap the duck breasts with the bacon and onion. I also sliced the duck breasts in about half or thirds, wrapped them in the bacon, and used toothpicks to hold everything in place. I did this for each half of a duck breast that I prepared. Wrapped it in bacon, tucked some onion inside the bacon, and use a toothpick to hold everything in place. Wrapped in bacon, with onions stuck underneath and toothpicks kind of holding the bacon and the onion in place. So stretching the bacon out a little bit made it wrap a little bit better around each piece of the duck breast. Since I just took the duck breast and no skin, that takes away from the fat content of this protein. So adding a little bit of fat back with the bacon is a really good way to get basically some grease into this meat and keep it from drying out. So again, just a toothpick stuck through the bacon and the duck breast, a couple little slices of onion tucked underneath the bacon as I roll it up or wrap it up, and then another toothpick stuck in the other end to hold it all together. Also piled all these up as I put them together just on a piece of saran wrap plastic, and kept them all together before I put them in the bowl to pour the marinade over them. So next comes the goose breast, and I did basically the same thing. I used whole strips of bacon, anchored it down with toothpicks. Then I slid some slices of onion underneath the bacon, sandwiched it in between that duck breast and that bacon. So while it's cooking, that warm bacon grease will kind of melt down through the onion into the duck breast and should spread the flavor out across the duck breast while it's cooking in the smoker. On the second goose breast, I got a little smarter and used a whole slice of an onion and then wrapped the bacon around that. It was just easier to hold it all together with a whole slice of onion. It worked out pretty well, and I think it had a little bit better flavor with the additional onion on it. So the start of my marinade was a jar of orange marmalade jelly. And this really is your grandma's recipe. I started with this jar of orange marmalade jelly, making sure I got every bit of it out of the jar. And then I put the dry seasoning together and kind of made it up as I went along. So we'll look and guess together as to how much of each of these I put in. Next is coarse ground black pepper, and I think somewhere in the neighborhood of a tablespoon is about what I used here. Okay, maybe 2 tablespoons. Next is seasoning salt. I was a little cautious with this one because I didn't know if the brine water that all of these breasts had soaked in would make them salty already. So I only used about half a teaspoon here. Next is granulated garlic, or garlic powder actually, and about 2 tablespoons of garlic powder here. Now this is for 12 duck breasts and 2 goose breasts. So it's kind of proportioned against that whole jar of marmalade jelly. So about probably 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. Next is onion powder. And again, this is probably, I would say, about 2 tablespoons or so of garlic powder. Next is soy sauce. And really what I did here was I just want to mix it so that I have the consistency of syrup, so that it's thick enough to pour over the breasts, and I want to save a little bit of consistency for the next ingredient that's wet also, and it's a pretty important ingredient. So I'm going to stir it up, check the consistency, see how thick it is, and determine how much I can thin it down with one more really important liquid ingredient. It is a little bit thick there. So I will add this very important ingredient. Probably about 2 good shots of some kind of bourbon whiskey. Okay, maybe 3. Stir it down, mix it up well. A little bit of olive oil poured over the goose breasts. I failed to do this over the duck breast, but it won't hurt to add a little bit of additional oil to mix in with the marinade as it spends some time soaking over the duck and goose breasts. So I took all the leftover onion I had, put it in the bottom of this bowl, and started stacking the duck breasts that I had prepared with the bacon wrap and onions into the bowl. I put about half of the breast in the bowl. Then I started spooning the marinade over that group of duck breasts. There's really no rhyme or reason to how I did this. It was in part an experiment. I was just lucky that it turned out as good as it did. So I'll pile the other 6 or so duck breasts into the bowl. And then I will spoon some additional marinade over the rest of these duck breasts. Spoon this marinade on. A layer of saran wrap goes over them, and into the fridge they go. It turned out to be about 48 hours before I was able to put them into the smoker. So I let them marinate 24 to 48 hours. It made for a pretty good opportunity for them to really soak up a lot of the flavors that are in the marinade that I made. So next we'll take what's left and add it to the 2 goose breasts. They have plenty of onion on them, so I didn't put any onion in the bottom of this bowl. Wouldn't hurt anything at all. But spoon the remaining marinade over these breasts, and they'll get a saran wrap cover over them and into the refrigerator for the same 48 hours that the duck breasts go in. Next, it's into the smoker about 2 hours at 225 degrees for the goose breasts. I added the duck breasts after the 2 hours and let the duck breast go with the goose breast for about another hour and a half. Everything came out about medium rare. I smoked it over cherry wood, and everything turned out just cooked right and delicious. Hey, if you enjoyed this video and learned something from it, hit that like button. Subscribe for more outdoor activities that come from Desert Angler YouTube, fishing, giveaways, and more hunting and hiking coming up soon. So watch, like, and subscribe, Desert Angler.